So let's talk about this again. This is an EDU source. We're talking about the Gullahs, the Gullah Geechees, Wale Geechees, whatever. But right here you got where they talk about it. Now, this is an EDU source. There's only one .gov source I found. Other than that, it was the rest, a couple of EDUs, and the rest was just random, non-vetted. But you got this, says, with no written historical record of the etymology of the term Gullah or Geechee, scholars have conjectured on the origins. Gullah might be a derivation of Golas, people from West Africa, or certain from Angola and whatever from the South Carolinas, right? And it really doesn't even say anything about Geechee, except it says these people lived around the Geechee River. Now, those books were done in the early 1900s. Maybe they didn't look in the newspaper. Now, if you're talking about etymology of the word, technically there is no word history on it via documented dictionary sources. So what you're going to do is look in the lexicon in the public sphere to see when was that word utilized, whether it be in books, newspapers, documents, whatever. Here it is in 1806. Again, you got Prime, Congo, and Gullah Negroes, saying there's a ship coming of them. Now, whether or not all of these are true, the only documented proof of these are these actual newspaper articles. They don't have slave ship manifests to prove these. But I won't deny that I see these, and I won't deny that some people did possibly come over via the documents. 8 to 10,000, the number is very small. That doesn't dilute all the black people that were here or melanated people in the United States. But for sure, if you look in many different papers, you can easily find the word Gullah. They even gave this one man a name called Gullah Jack, and he had a whole story of, a story. Like this, Gullah Jack was considered invincible. He could not be hurt or unalived by any means. Whatever a blow from him would do, instant execution. At one of these meetings, they had a foul dressed and a put on a table. Gullah Jack performed some ceremony on witchcraft over it. As you can see, it was a storytelling thing. But for sure, you will always see it with Gullah, and sometimes they'll say Angola. So that's how you know that the two were intertwined, or it was a mispronunciation. Just like they mispronunciated and purposely misspelled all of the Indian tribe names. They did with Gullah, like Wale, Gullah, or Angola. In my opinion, it was utilized as more of a slur, because in many of these newspapers, they would say stuff like this in there. You see that word? But they would also make fun of the way that the people talk. Now, you do not see any of these African language words within the way that they actually try to make them talk. It's just a broken English, which is supposed to sound comical. 1858, as you can see that word right there, but they were talking about Gullah Sam now. Now it's Gullah Sam. See this? Do you see the stories? Do you see the denigration? They're denigrating your name. They're denigrating you, calling you a Gullah. You know what I'm saying? You thinking you really came from Angola. They just saying you're a Gullah. Shut up, you Gullah. No different than them saying, shut up, you. See how they mispronounce it twice up here? The Gullah Negroes were from Gola. They didn't even put Angola right there. And this is 1858. And then they also try to say on what is present-day Liberia. Now, we know that they're playing. Now, first of all, they try to say Gola is people come from Angola, but they're supposed to have a Portuguese influence. But now they're throwing in Liberia in there. But if they're present Liberia, what does it have to do with Angola? Because Liberia and Angola are completely now nowhere near each other, and they have different influences. They speak Portuguese there, the Portuguese influence there. Liberia was populated by free blacks and black Indians that were shipped from America, and they speak English there. Now, this is the oldest book. We're going to get back to the newspapers, but this is the oldest book, just to kind of drive the point home, 1922, that I can find about Gullahs. And this is what they think of you, slovenly and careless of speech. These Gullahs seized upon the peasant English used by some of the early settlers and by the white servants of the wealthier colonists, wrapped their clumsy tongues about it as well as they could and enriched it with certain expressive African words. They're really making fun of you. Keep listening. With characteristic laziness, these Gullah Negroes took shortcuts to the ears of their auditors, using as few words as possible, sometimes making one gender serve for three. Okay? Like, think about this. They're making fun of you from going from being indigenous to being forced to speak English when they finally came over, and then when it's broken and they don't really fully educate you, they made fun of you and called you a Gullah. Ambrose Gonzalez is this dude right here. He spoke the Gullah dialect on the coast, which cannot be comprehended by any outsider. 1868. That was 1922 when they said that about you. Prior to this, they was making fun of you. Gullah, Look at how they're writing the words. They saying you come from Africa, but then they say you'll talk like this. Oh, lovely Isabel, you makes me so miserable. I never is happy except when you is visible. They're playing with you and making rhymes. 1862 that was. Did you ever see the devil scratching up the gravel with his long toenails? Making fun of you. Even if you were a government official, they made fun of you. We wonder what the Gullah statesman is doing with our share. Gullah in, good enough, said Kojo, whose grandfather had been one. Good enough for me, said his master. Easy a king, said the driver. I say a lazy. King, that naked savage, making fun of you. Gullah talk, half African, half English. African is not a language, and they've been saying it over and over again. You have a half African language, an African tongue. There was no African tongue. There was the tongue of certain tribes in certain languages. They never referred to this specific language until later. They tried to say it's Creole, but it was a broken English based upon colonization. 1896. Still before those books, priority on the broken Gullah English, okay? Common alike to blacks and whites on the lands. Never in my house, in my life, sir. Who talks like that? Who has been portrayed like that in all the movies? It is a slave dialect. It is a broken English from slaves. The only difference with Gullahs is they have a Bahamian, Caribbean-like affliction or accent. He was blessed with a rare quality of humor and an extensive vocabulary in the purest Gullah, to which added original expressions and comical sayings. His whole action was funny. Gullah wisdom. I don't see nothing head next summer except suffer, my chillin' crying, my wife grumbling, and that are to me, nothing African is in this. Nothing. They called it inner talk. Okay, I should have started this whole goddamn thing with this. They called it in talk. Even played around and said, or it's a Guinea dialect. They'll just throw any African place at you. And just to throw this in there real quick, Geechee was used in the newspapers 57,000 times from 1734. So we knew about Geechee here in the United States. And the first time Gullah and Geechee was found in the newspapers together was in 1946, after they've been calling you all kinds of names for over 100 years as a Gullah. Okay, Geechee was just a river. And then you turn around and let this guy write books like this, knowing that he understands Negro Portuguese, but does never ask why the Angolans, who speak 71% Portuguese, and Portuguese been there since the 1500s. But this guy who knows so-called 32 African languages never asked the question, and he's an expert.